You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
You've been working too long in a professional outfit, Tony. You don't need earphones or the cans on for this, because I'm only speaking to you a metre across, and you don't need those to hear me speak to you. This is Tony Sheahan I'm speaking to. Tony is in the house. He was on, had a very memorable chat we did with Tony, and people found it extremely humorous about his exploits or escapades, or his situation up in Sydney with an Uber driver.
No, we're not going there again.
I'm just telling you, people found
Sam,
that
we had an agreement.
I'm not going there. I'm saying, don't be so defensive, Tony. I'm saying that people found it an extremely humorous chat. That's all I'm saying about that. You know, when you pinch the Uber driver's car. But we're not going there.
Are you trying to set me up again, are you?
Not at all, mate. No, we're not going there.
I'll tell you what, I've got a lot on you. We don't want to. Do we want to go down this path?
Tony, I tell you what. If you go right ahead with what you think you got on me, I'll give you a carte blanche for 5 minutes.
Well, hang on. You've thrown me under the bus for the fourth
time. I haven't thrown you under the bus.
We had an agreement yesterday whilst we were filming for Houdini Plumbing.
Now we're
this
out.
was off.
Now we were out at Houdini Plumbing.
We were.
And I did a little piece to camera. Wayne Carey had done it the week before, or
he did a very good job.
And we were just extolling the virtues of, is it a heat exchanger? What is it?
Are you taking the piss again? It's an electrical heat pump.
I'm asking you.
Well, you did the advertisement yesterday.
And I stood beside this
heat pump.
Well, I said it was a heat exchanger. What's the difference?
Well, how old are you? You're 78, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, what's a heat exchanger? It boils up and it exchanges heat to make...
Well, if you filter it for the masses so they understand what you're saying, you would say a heat pump. It's an electrical heat pump. Well, as you described yesterday for your 45 minutes of filming.
No, what I pride myself on, Tony, is speaking English. And if you don't know the difference between a heat exchanger and a heat pump, tell me what the difference is.
It's merely a matter of words.
That's correct. So I was standing next to a heat exchanger, but if you wish to call it a heat pump, and we were saying how great they are.
They are great. They are great.
Well, I was asked to say I had one in my house, but I don't have a house, so I said I have one in my boat, because I do.
Yes.
And I wasn't trying to say, I've got a boat and aren't I an elitist? I was just saying I shouldn't say I have one in my house, because I don't have a house, because I live in an apartment, and I don't think the apartment has Houdini heat exchangers or heat pumps in it. I think they have a huge boiler that services the 400 people that live in the apartments. But having have one on my boat, I found out it's extraordinarily efficient and quiet, and it says it's good for the planet, but I don't care if it's good for the planet or not, because we don't do any damage to the planet, the people who live on it. It's only the things that people construct, like ships and planes that go around the world spewing crap, and volcanoes and things that spew...
Everything's bad for us. Food's bad for us.
Yes, you're bad for us.
Well, you're bad for society too.
So anyhow, Ivan's here as well. So hello, Ivan.
And I'm not late.
Hey?
I'm not late, unlike Tony.
No, we'll get on to you.
Blame the Uber driver.
Since you've retired from the mining industry, you've been the hoi polloi. You've been the man about town. You were seen dressed up in your frock at the Chicago, the musical.
Yes.
As a result of Greg Evans saying
I better get down there.
Punts along and see it.
Yep. And it was good. So thanks, Greg.
Yeah, so we'll get on to that in a minute. I ain't finished speaking.
What, with Houdini Plumbing?
Well, so Houdini Plumbing.
So this is the one that you got Wayne Carey.
Yes.
It just plastered everywhere. Every time I pick up the internet,
Sam took
he's on
umbrage to being the biggest star in Australia from the AFL world. Just was wondering whether it was he or Wayne.
Tony, what you do is you invite people to take the piss out of you.
No, not out of me.
That is an absolute lie. I didn't take umbrage. Your friend, is it Ahmed?
Yes.
He said, would I come and do a thing for Houdini Plumbing?
Yeah.
And I said, well...
Cash? Cash?
No, no money changed hands at all.
Everything's digital these days.
It was just a was just because he's a friend of Tony's, and Tony said he's been on the podcast, and Ahmed said, well, seeing as you gave him a belting over the Uber driver, which he stole his taxi many years ago. And
you're an arsehole.
He said, why don't you do this for nothing and make it up? So I just did it as
Did you have lines of coke this morning?
Not this morning, no.
Well, I told you not to go over this rubbish.
Well, I'm not going over it. I'm just saying why I did the thing for Houdini Plumbing with the heat exchanger or the heat pump. I said I did it to try and make up for the fact that you got annoyed with me, and I'm just making that up. And I did it as a favour.
Yes.
Is it plastered as Wayne's part, plastered all over the internet?
Every time you go on Google, there he is. He's got his face there.
Will that happen to me?
Yes.
No doubt.
What?
Yes.
Oh, so you've stitched me up. I said I'll just do it, and you can
It's
just
for the social media platform. It's not going to be all over your former employers.
Reckon we're giving Houdini Plumbing enough at this stage?
Wow. It all depends on what your fees are.
No, I didn't. I didn't say I got a fee, did I?
Oh, I just said it all depends on what your fees are.
Well, it wouldn't matter what they are. I don't think they could pay for what we've just said about them.
They've turned off after your rubbish about Sydney.
I said someone heard that they were listening in the car,
Luke
and they
Tunnicliffe.
said it's the most what?
Luke Tunnicliffe.
Oh, all right. Well, Luke Tunnicliffe it was. I told you that in confidence. Doesn't matter. Luke.
What does it matter? It was about me.
Yeah, no, and he said it was extremely humorous.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's all I mentioned. That I didn't mention anything about you in the
you did.
In the
Shut
Uber
up.
car and pinching it.
Where are we going with this?
I have no idea.
You to stitch me up again, are you?
No.
Your superiority complex has reared its ugly head?
No. So
why don't you tell everybody about the image on your mobile phone?
Now, hang on a minute. What's that?
The image on your mobile phone screensaver.
What is it?
It's you. That's how egomaniacal you are.
What? Well, I'll tell you why.
What do you have on yours?
Just a stock standard image. Sam's got an image of himself.
What are you talking about? That?
Yeah, that's you, isn't it?
Well, see.
No, that's good thinking. Like if you lose your phone, someone will pick it up and go, "Oh, that's Sam."
Explain that
Obviously
to
Sam.
a nuclear physicist.
The one sitting,
Tony,
or the bloke who's got somebody else's hair on his head.
Tony. I've got 2 mobile phones. Why are you called Tony Two Phones?
I still am, Sam. And
right.
there's 2 right there.
I've got. This is exciting. This stuff. I've got 2 mobile phones, so. When I pick up the one with my image on it, I know that's the one, that is a business one, and the other one has another screen. Would you like me to show you the screensaver of the other one?
I think people out there will think it's hilarious that you have an image of yourself on your own telephone.
Well, it's my phone, and as Ivan says, if someone picks it up, they could probably see my image and say, unless they want to pinch it and they can't get into it because it's face recognition, mind you, with the work I've had done on my face, it gives it
not recognise you.
Gives it the loyalty test.
I think the Hume Highway's jealous of your work.
What's that?
The Hume Highway's had less work than your face.
You're in very good form today, Tone. That's probably the weakest. No, that's good, mate. You're working beautifully.
We winding this up now, Ivan?
We do.
Like
you're working.
Now
you're working
you
as
said,
well as Warwick Kappa.
Now you said before I get on to some topics here, you just said don't start on about the Sydney Uber thing because would you like me to unload on some of you? And I said, go on, unload on me.
No, well, I'm not prepared to come in here so that you set me up and then turn around and we go over this rubbish.
Tony,
I thought we were having a serious conversation.
We're about to, but
let's move on.
Well,
I'm not discussing what we discussed.
No, you said to me,
intimidated you.
No, you were starting to blackmail me. You said if I don't stop talking about that, you'll unload on me. I said, go ahead. I'm asking you now. Tell me what's the worst thing or the most embarrassing thing you could ask me about now.
Well, I'm not
go
on.
No,
I want to keep the You Cannot Be Serious podcast at a level. You're going away for 3 months, so it doesn't matter what you say or do from here on in.
Oh, what? No one will know when we do the podcast from where I'm going that we're not here doing it in the studio. No one knows because we just broadcast it through the airwaves here like we're doing. Wouldn't matter where I am. I could be in Sri Lanka or Bulgaria doing it. No one would know. They would think I'm here in Port Melbourne doing it. I want you to tell me what you were going to say.
No, I'm not going to go.
Why
down that
not?
path. Well, because you just want an argument to.
I don't want an argument. I want to know how you would. I want to. That's my son going up there. He'll be happy to hear this. I want you to tell me what you have on me that I would be embarrassed for you to say.
No, I'm not going there.
I'll go on.
No.
Isn't it extreme? This is reverse psychology. You say, don't speak about me and that other incident, and I'm asking you to speak about me.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go to those depths.
Well, what depths?
Yeah.
What depths would there be? What have I done?
Have
I been charged with pedophilia or buggery or incest? Tell me, have you heard
So are we actually recording this?
Yeah, we are actually.
Have you heard a rumour about some of my past deeds?
I don't think they're rumours.
Is it about drug taking or being pissed or what? Is it
we'll keep
assaulting people? What?
I don't know about that, but you tell us.
What? Well, you don't know about that, but all the others were fair game. Were they? Were they?
I don't know. As I said, I'm not going there. We should straighten up a little bit.
Well, there you are. Well, see, you never call someone's bluff unless you know what the answer's going
I
to
do
be.
know what the answer is. I'm just not going there.
Why not?
Well, because I don't want to stoop. I don't want to stoop to your levels about going over my past, which you said you wouldn't do.
Oh, well, I'm not anymore. I'm not going to mention.
Pretty word in
It sounds like you're deeper in it than maybe he is.
I'm not mentioning the Uber affair ever again.
See,
and I'm not. So you tell me. Just give us a hint about what if you were trying
just
to
move forward.
Right now. I get you in here because you're good to chat to, and Ivan, you're good to chat to too. But you probably know a bit more about what's going on in the football scene, AFL. We don't speak much about AFL because we think there's other things in life besides that. I'll get on to just the AFL, but last week, you wouldn't have known this, Ivan said a very good...
I think I know what you're going to say.
What did you laugh at then?
What are we going to talk about?
I was going to talk about, you made a very good point about Ayrton Senna's car being driven by Sebastian Vettel.
Yes.
Because it was at Imola where Ayrton Senna lost his life. And as a tribute to Ayrton Senna, Sebastian Vettel bought his car and said he would drive it round in a parade lap. And Ayrton Senna's car had Marlboro plastered all over it in the day because Marlboro sponsored him. And Ivan said, I bet they don't allow the car to go around with the Marlboro sign on it because that is subliminal, or not subliminal, that is indirect advertising cigarettes, which is illegal. I said, surely they would if they're trying to replicate what Ayrton Senna's car looked like, they'd put Marlboro on it. And sure enough, the car didn't have Marlboro on it. It had all the colours and all the livery design, but it just didn't have the word Marlboro on it. And I said, Tony, that how come the Australian Open, the tennis tournament here, is sponsored by a Chinese liquor company?
The Red Wine.
Right. What?
The Red Wine Company.
Is
it 1873?
Yeah, it's 1563 or something, which is 53% alcoholic content, and it's up beside Kia as a sponsor. How come they're allowed to do that?
Oh, I totally agree. What about Qatar Airways sponsoring the Sydney Swans and the SCG?
What's wrong with Qatar?
I didn't say there was anything wrong with them. There was some issues over their situation over at the World Cup and... the country's treatment of women.
Yep, nothing to do with...
That was brought into question.
Harbouring the guy from Hamas.
Yeah, so that is the point. The point of it is that you can find fault with anyone sponsoring anything about anyone or anyone saying something. It's like... all Nike and Puma and Adidas, they get all their great T-shirts and shoes made by sweatshop kids in Taiwan and not Taiwan, Bangladesh, and all that sort of stuff. And the Chinese have prison camps for the Muslim population over there, don't they? Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands.
The Uyghurs,
The Uyghurs. Well done, Ivan. I couldn't think of the word Uyghur. So it's hypocritical all around the world, isn't it? So we just said we thought if you were going to pretend that, not pretend, if you were going to give a tribute to Ayrton Senna, put the car on that he drove. But no.
do the real thing.
Yes.
Yep. But they said for legal reasons that was the whole reason
can't
why
advertise cigarettes. That's
it's too woke. We're allowed to advertise alcohol everywhere and anywhere, and it's the worst drug on the planet.
You would know that, Tony, if you've had a love affair with alcohol.
Well, as have you, Sam, considering you drove through a booze bus 20 years ago and then had to stop.
I did not. That's absolute nonsense.
You told all
No, Tony.
What was that?
So this is the trouble with you, Tony.
It's not the trouble with me, Sam.
Excuse me. You're not smart enough to be half smart.
Here we go.
Well, I'm telling you, I didn't drive.
Your superiority complex is getting the better of you again.
Of course, because I'm dealing with a dunderhead.
Don't stop belittling people. It's below you.
Well, don't make false statements. I'm happy to.
You still got a love affair with alcohol.
And you said, and so have you. You drove through a booze bus. I did nothing of the sort.
Well, you explain yourself then.
Well, I was about to. I'm just correcting you when you give false information.
You don't like being challenged, do you?
Tony, I don't like being accused of something I didn't do. Happy to put my hand up for something I did do. Yeah. I didn't drive through a booze bus. I was driving home from a celebration of the second year of the footy show when the temporary casino was up, and I was pulled up at 3 a.m. driving home from the casino, and 2 female police women pulled me up, and I was 0.19, which is about 80 times over the limit, and I lost my licence for 2 years and rightly so. I'd never drove through a booze bus 20 years ago. That's why I stopped drinking, because I came to a booze bus and was waved through, and I thought, wow, I'd had a couple of drinks, and if I lost my life...
So you drove through a booze bus?
I didn't drive through it. I was waved through.
What the hell do you think that is? If you drove through, waved through, it's the same thing.
Well, you were insinuating, weren't you, that I got sprung at the booze bus, and that's how I lost my licence.
Assumptions can only make an ass out of you and me.
So what was your drink? What was your drink of choice?
I think
were you a beer man, whiskey man?
Oh, no, we'd got into the...
And plenty of nose beers.
We got it. No, I hadn't had any nose beers. Drugs, if that's what you're saying. I'd had a lot of spirits. Yes, spirits.
Which car were you in? The Lambo?
No, I wasn't in a Lambo. No, I wasn't. I was in a Porsche.
Okay.
And the very charming, I shouldn't say charming policewomen, the 2 police people.
Officers,
opened the door, and I fell out onto the road. But I was driving beautifully. So I was.
Let's not skip over the falling out of the car.
Well, I was driving beautifully.
And why did they pick you up? You're all over the road.
They just doing a traffic check at someone who was out in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, and they're just wondering what I was doing. Not proud of any of that. I'm sort of making fun of it, but I got what I deserved. And you insinuated I drove through a booze bus and lost my licence. That's what you were insinuating.
Well, did you lose your licence?
No. Oh, what? That time I said I lost it for 2 years.
0.19, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years.
There you go.
Not when I didn't drive through the booze bus and lose it. That's what I was clearing up.
Yeah, anyway.
Now, we got you in here ostensibly...
Well, I'm not sure why, just to try and belittle me again and go over...
I'm not trying to belittle you. I just said the person who listened to the previous time in thought it was humorous about that time that you were in the Uber.
No.
You sound like Don then. No.
Well, Don's no longer here.
Now,
well, true.
So a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about highest paid players in the competition. And
we got it. I got it.
We looked up.
Terribly wrong.
We looked up. Did you know this? Yeah, the doc says he can. He's just texted me, the doc, Ben Ford, and he can come on at 10:30. So I'm just going to text him back and just give him a thumbs up. That's what we do. Yeah, beautiful. I've done it.
So we're in here with Dougie last week.
Yeah, and Doug's. And I said that
Doug Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. You're a similar person to Doug.
He's nothing like Doug.
No, he's
So Sam can't help himself.
I don't know.
I'd say it's a good thing for Melburnians that you're leaving the state for 3 months.
now. So
what's that say for Queenslanders?
So we were talking about...
He'll fit in at Early Beach.
No, I think he'll raise the IQ up there.
We were talking about the highest paid players in sport.
Yes.
They're actually men. We were talking about males.
Yes.
We weren't discounting the women, but it happened to be about males and who earned the most.
Well, who does earn the most?
Well, there was people like...
LeBron.
No, we were talking about Max Verstappen being offered $250 million to go and drive for Ferrari. And we said that surely wouldn't be a year and all that sort of stuff. And then we got on to AFL players. And Suzanne Stanley, OAM, she looked up the list of the highest paid players in the competition. What? In 1923.
2023.
2023.
Working beautifully.
Yeah, no, that's what I was playing. 2023. And the highest paid player in the competition was a man I'd never heard of called Ben Mackay.
Who does he play for?
Well, I said he played for Essendon and Ivan said he played for North Melbourne.
No, Dougie also helped me out. He said
Sam's
North Melbourne.
right.
He is.
Yeah, I said that when we had the discussion.
It's the only time I'm ever going to say that.
Well,
and all the listeners that write in for
only
the
because it
social
said it
media
on the
calls.
list.
Well, just check the website to make sure that it's viable and legitimate.
What?
Check the website and see whether it's a legitimate source of information and to gauge whether they're...
I take your point, but what I did is I typed into the machine. It said highest paid players in the AFL. And that's what it came out with. Unless they're telling lies or that's a bogus app that I typed into. It's got all the top players.
I'm just checking the legitimacy.
All the top players. I'll just read some of them out for you if you like.
Well, go for the top 10.
Mackay, Martin, Fife, Jeremy McGovern, Tim Kelly, Bontempelli, Oliver, Petrarca, Cameron, Lynch, Moore, Cripps, Heaney. So all that. So
have you heard of any of those?
I've heard a lot of them. Some of them I hadn't. But that seems a legitimate source, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Now, you said there may be a new one from West Coast Eagles.
You wouldn't have to be Einstein to work out that Harley Reid is potentially going to be the highest paid player in the competition if he continues on his merry way.
Harley Reid?
Yes.
And how many games he played?
10. He's West Coast's
let me
new
get
recruit.
This straight. Harley Reid has played 10 games and you're saying he's on his way to be the highest paid player in the comp?
Yep, in the history of the comp.
Well, let's hope he doesn't suffer a career-ending injury in next game because that's the end of your theory.
Well, everybody's saying it. I'm hardly the first person to say it and I won't be the last. There are already comparisons against Chris Judd and those who went before him. He's an absolute superstar and he's played 10 games.
That is an oxymoron, mate. You cannot be an absolute superstar and play 10 games. That is absolute nonsense, Tony. I just say that with great respect. That is absolute nonsense.
You don't need longevity to be anything.
You need more than 10 games to be called a superstar.
Why? You need more than 10 games to be called a legend.
What's that?
You need 10 games to be more than 10 games to be called a legend. Superstar could be 3 games. It doesn't matter about longevity.
Well, Tony, I'm looking across the desk at you,
yes,
and I'm looking into the back of your eyes,
yes,
back of your head through your eyes, and there's fuck all behind there.
Yeah,
I can see they could have made Space Invaders in the back of your skull.
Well, good on them.
You cannot play 3 games and be called an absolute 10. Well, you said you could be called 3.
Well, I'm still fixated on, as Wayne Carey calls your hair, the possum.
Well, you think it's unreal? It's not real.
I think it is unreal.
No, you think it's not real.
Yeah.
Well, come over. Don't be careful because the glue takes a while. The glue takes a while to set, and I've only put it on at 7 this morning. But come and see if you can pull it off, and then have a crack at the hair. Tony.
I thought I was coming for
this is what we have.
Intelligent conversations.
So Ben Mackay is on 1.5 mil, and I'd never heard of him, so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And then
and he's a defender.
Is he?
Yes.
Well, this is why we get you on, because you know everything about the game.
I wouldn't say everything, but...
So then we got on to, now you might be interested in this, Tony. How many players, do you reckon have played 300 games or more of AFL, VFL football?
In the history of the competition?
Yeah.
300, I would say 50.
I would have said almost 50. Do you know how many have played?
No.
We should verify this. It says 103 players have played 300 games or more.
And out of how many players? What, 15,000?
That have ever played?
Yeah.
Well, so here's one.
No, it'd be more than that. God almighty, the game's been going for 100 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
However, they play more games in a season now, don't they, than in the old days.
You preempted the fact of me bringing this up.
Aha.
So there's over 100 people have played 300 games or more, and I would say 300 games today is like playing 200 before the interchange bench came in, which was in 1978. If you played over 300 games before 1978, you genuinely played 300 games or more, because you could play half a game for every game of the season and get credited with a game, so that gives 50% longer life to your career. The medical way they treat injuries and the medical advancements keep you on the track longer, and you played less games in those days. It was only 12 in the competition. So 300 games today is not quite like it was before the interchange bench came on. But the point of me bringing this up is that of the over 100 people, that has amassed about, if you take a rough average, that means there is about 35,000 games those players have played. And I venture to say not one of them, you can correct me on this, has suffered CTE or mental acuity problems in all those games they've played. And suddenly there's a rash of people playing today that say they've got mental problems and they're
diagnosed with CTE.
I reckon not one of those players that's played 300 games, or of the 35,000 games those players have amassed, that they've ever had any problems with mental acuity. So I'm saying it's a rort.
Can you only be diagnosed with CTE post your existence on Earth? So they can only diagnose it once you've died?
Well, now, can you speak to this, Suzanne? She can speak to this because she has two machines that test for them. She brought them in from the States or from overseas, and currently they are out in the community being testing people for mental problems. Can you ask that question again, Tony?
Sue, to reiterate, can people be diagnosed with CTE whilst they are still living?
Well, there's no evidence, so they've only just been aware of it since people have died, and they've obviously done autopsies on the brain, so that's where they're seeing it. So now that they're going, oh, this is a real thing, now they've got to work backwards and say, how do they detect from once a player finishes to actually when they actually find they've got a mental illness, how do you validate that? Because realistically, the concussions and the doctors do an absolutely amazing job, and that's all they can do really. But it's today now the technologies that's coming into it, and you want something that's non-invasive, something very quickly, but you want to do the most important part of any concussion. It can be diagnosed, everyone can be diagnosed, whatever, but who goes and how long does it take you to come back to normal? So how long does the swelling on the brain come back? Your knock might have been different to Paul's or Ivan's knock, and how hard, and you may come back quicker. Ivan may take a little bit more time. So how do you validate that? And this is what this machine does. It actually has it, and I think it's probably one of the best machines out in the market to get the return to play, get the doctors to diagnose it, that's fine. It's non-invasive, 3-minute test, eye testing, eyes don't lie, windows to the soul, so we know that. So why wouldn't they do that? They should be testing anyone who comes into the draft, pre-season, during any knocks, post-season, And then once they start getting data, you can't change the past because it's already happened.
Once you've got a benchmark,
exactly.
that sets.
And then
the
they'll get some
start.
data from the young kids that are coming through. And then when you're finished, and then obviously when you're finished, what was the reading then? And then when you actually then go and claim that something's gone wrong, because they'll go through your past of, have you had brawl fights, or have you had accidents or drugs or alcohol, which is all these things, which how do they know? So therefore you can actually have a balance. It's going to be a long term. I think, we're not going to have a fixed solution right now, but let's do something.
Is it TGA, FDA approved?
Yeah.
And one of the classic examples, that was the late Graham Farmer, Polly Farmer, who was assessed maybe in the last 3 or 4 years of his life that he'd received brain injury, and I think his family donated his brain to the university for examination or for scrutiny. So, I'm just saying to you that would you have thought over 100 people have played 300 games or more, and that's about 35,000 games, and I don't reckon one of them has ever suffered from mental problems.
I would say the majority of those.
It's a very rash statement, I've got a feeling, but I'm standing by it.
Those 105 people who played over 300 games, the majority would be towards recent times.
Absolutely, that's quite right.
Sam's played over 300.
Yes,
300 and
three. The majority of them, as Ivan said, the very great majority are after the interchange bench came in
post 1978.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, KB, Scott Pendlebury's 396 or 394. Michael Tuck.
Boomer Harvey.
Was Dustin Fletcher?
400. Did he get to 400? I don't know. But, yep.
Yeah, so they're of modern day times, but...
Well, Bartlett was in that era.
Yeah.
No, but they are legitimate.
Well, over 400, there's only 5, and due to make it the 6 is Scott Pendlebury, so... And that's over 400 games.
Sean?
I don't think he played 400.
No, not 400. 300.
So then we got on to, this is still on football.
Yep.
So someone told me that I discussed why ruckmen don't jump at the centre bounce. Do you notice that they all just link hands and push and shove? And I said, why don't, when the balls bounce, why don't ruckmen actually jump up and hit the ball? And my contention is that they're not taught how to play in the ruck as to jump up, and the technique of getting over your opponent, that they're not taught properly. And I said I was by far the best ruck instructor ever. Suzanne is doing the massaging the old snag sign there, but you don't have to have been to the moon to know it's there. I know how the technique of getting a hit out is, and I was employed by several clubs over my journey to instruct players how to play in the ruck, and I've had tremendous success with it. So I'm just
Jeff
saying
White?
that. Yes, I'm just saying that.
No, I'm encouraging you.
I went to 6 different clubs doing it, and I was unanimously lauded for just instructing on the technique. So it's not rocket science.
But it's changed, you're right.
So it's because no one knows what they're trying to do, A, how to get hit out, or B, who to hit it to.
And C, where to stand.
Yes, right. So I mentioned this. And so someone told me that a woman on a football program on 3AW said, this woman said that...
Do you know the woman's name?
I was told the woman's name.
You're not allowed to mention
No,
her?
I wasn't told the woman's name. They just said they didn't know much about football.
Oh, okay.
That they were listening to football, and they said because they knew I had said about why the players don't jump for it. And this person who told me said she was interested because there was a woman who was explaining it, and I said, "What did the woman say?" And the woman said the reason they don't jump is because it's to negate people who are taller than them, so they link arms and they stop the person jumping. And
Yeah.
I said, that is absolute nonsense. And the person who said that either should have been pulled up by the other male people who are on the panel, because that is just speaking nonsense. That's, if you've got a woman who's never played football before and doesn't know what she's talking about, she shouldn't be allowed to get away with making erroneous statements, which she's made many of over her career. But that is just patent, absolute nonsense. So I can tell you the history of all that, and I'll read out the rule, if you like. But I
agree with you.
was asked in 1980 by Adrian Anderson, who
The head of
used to be...
football?
Yes. He came down to my house in Brighton in 1980, and he said, we're having trouble with people having knee injuries by them running at each other from afar. Dempsey and Moore were the two combatants, and they were suffering many injuries because instead of jumping up in the air to hit the ball, they were jumping through the air to try and take their opponent out. And he said, what would be the best way to stop that? And I said, put a line across the circle. I'm responsible for the line. Put a line across the circle so that you have 180 degrees of circle to stand in or patrol, and the other opponent has the other 180, and you should not cross the line until you jump for the ball. And then they put a bigger circle, if you'll notice, outside the smaller circle, and you had to start your run from the bigger circle. You couldn't get back 30 metres and run in like a bloody steam train and try and garrote someone and king hit them. And so that made people not only limit their run up, but they had to jump up for the ball rather than through the air at their opponent. So to say that the line is there and you take no notice of it, and as soon as the ball's bounced you walk across it and hang on to your opponent, that is just sheer ignorance for someone to say that. And I'll read out the rule, and this is the rule, that if you think I'm making it up. And what was more annoying was that the people who were sitting there listening to it, people who have played football and many games of it, just nodded. I presume nodded because it's not a visual medium, the radio. I presume they nodded or didn't even know what this person was talking about. In 1980, the introduction of the line across the centre circle to avoid physical interference at centre bounces. Ruckman had to start on their defensive side of the circle. Had to start on their defensive side of the circle line.
Yep.
So you weren't allowed to step across the line, and now as soon as the ball's bounced, they step across the line.
It's basketball-like. If you look at Brodie Grundy...
The umpires aren't policing it. And the person who said that's why they do it is to stop the taller opponents is absolute nonsense. But this is what happens when you give...
But it's not every time.
You give people an opinion who knows nothing about the game because they've never been out on it experiencing it.
I watched the very start of the Geelong, and I think it was the Gold Coast Suns match on the weekend.
Yeah, in Darwin.
It was. And I thought, let's watch this ball up, the first bounce, and see what happens. They ran in towards each other. The Geelong guy, wasn't Tom,
Blitzarves or Stanley?
and not sure who it was, but put the knee up, and I thought, oh, okay. But then from then on, after that, they linked arms.
But Sam, if you look at Brodie Grundy, he looks like he's going to run through his opponents at the centre bounce, but then stops, puts his knee up, and then it's almost basketball-like where they go vertical.
So Brodie Grundy plays for...
Is this a question?
Yes.
Sydney Swans.
Right, well, he was Collingwood Rodney.
Correct.
So the Sydney Swans could do a lot worse and ring me up and say, would you mind flying up and telling Brodie Grundy how to get a hit out? And I might just take a week off my very busy life and tell him it's a very simple mathematical proposition how you do it.
Are you being sincere in your offer?
No, I'm not. I'm not going up to Sydney to do anything. But if you want to see who the best exponent of it was ever, just watch the way Simon Madden played football.
He's a superstar.
And he was unbeatable because he had a fantastic technique. And the technique is that you get your opponent at 45 degrees, you hit the ball with the opposite side of the body that you jump off.
Yep.
And therefore you have your whatever is your trailing leg and trailing arm, you have that out at your opponent to keep them away from the ball. It's a simple mathematical equation, and if you have a look at it done properly, you'll see there's no other way to jump for the centre bounces. But no one knows how to do it, and no one knows when they get a hit out, where to hit out, where are the gaps. Where are the gaps in a centre bounce? I'll tell you where they are. No one ever stands behind the umpire, so that's where one of the gaps is, and the other one is immediately opposite the umpire. They just think that people hit the ball forward to their way of going, and the other people hit it towards the way they're kicking, and it's just a hit and miss operation. I worked out that it would be a 70-30 proposition. If you can get 70% of clearances out of the centre, that is a hell of an advantage, because if you bear in mind, Tony and Ivan, if there's 20 goals kicked, not that there is many these days, by each side, that's 40 times the ball's bounced in the centre, plus 1 for the start of each quarter. That's 44 times it's bounced in the centre. And if you get 70% of the clearances through some technical application of how to A, get a hit out, and B, to know where to hit it to, you've got to have an advantage.
I agree. So who are the modern exponents that are good ruckmen?
I don't know. I don't watch it. You
don't watch any football?
Very little of it. Very little of it.
Was it a particular day of the week?
What?
A particular day of the week? Would you watch Friday night footy or Sunday footy or
Thursday night?
Wouldn't watch it on Tuesday or Wednesday.
No, but is there a particular night that you...
No, I don't. I don't watch it because it's been...
Frustrating,
It's
is it?
been frustrated down to
Sanitised.
the umpiring, the
the score review system.
I just don't watch it, and the way it's played. So, but that's all right. If you love the game, that's fine. And the other thing that we do notice when the games get tight, or not even when they get tight, the little interest that clubs have in trying to get their charges who play for their side to kick a goal, to kick the ball accurately. The amount of time that's spent on teaching people how to kick a football straight would be non-existent. It's just a hit and miss approach, and when they miss a goal, it's vital. It might win them the game or save it to them, and they miss it, they just go, oh, blow.
The Bulldogs game
just goes
now.
on.
I love the Bulldogs, but 23 points they kicked.
Goes on and on and on.
Bang, bang, bang.
Well, Brian Taylor is big on this. And I
is
think,
he?
Yeah, he is.
I wonder where he got that from.
Potentially
I've been saying
you.
this for years.
Yeah, and then your old stablemate Nathan Brown from Richmond. He had the Richmond goal kicking coach David Whedon at the time at Punt Road. I think he would kick 100, if not. I can't remember the exact number, but every training session, David Whedon would take him through the process of kicking for goals, and he said it changed him for the better, obviously. And then Toby Green had Stevie Johnson in Sydney to teach him how to kick goals. Yep. Because that's how you win games.
The technique of making sure that it's like a golf swing, the consistent way you kick a ball, whether you run out and draw it in, or it doesn't matter how you do it or how you hold it, as long as you can do it consistently under pressure.
Yep. That's like Buddy Franklin. He never ran straight.
No, and was he a good goal kicker?
We kicked 1,000.
Right. Ben Dixon, I don't know.
Very good goal kicker.
Great. Jason Dunstall, great. Peter McKenna.
Third best of all time.
Just all those people who had great techniques. I don't know who kicks well today, but I remember those players in particular. You could bank on them kicking a goal every time they got the ball within 40 or 45 metres of the goal.
Do you know who is leading the Coleman at the moment?
No.
I think it's Charlie Curnow or Jesse Hogan, and Charlie Curnow hasn't been incredible, and Jesse Hogan from the Giants played his 150th on the weekend. He has a stutter in his run-up.
But Tony, it doesn't matter if you have a stutter or if you run out and kick it on an arc. If you can consistently kick the ball to a target behind the goals every time you kick, it doesn't matter how you run up or what you do. If you can perfect it, it's like a golf swing.
Yep.
People...
Or a basketball shot.
So banana kicks, says what I would know. Banana kicks, you're saying if you do it consistently and you kick the goal,
banana
they're okay.
kicks are good for for acute angles from a short distance, and that's probably a mathematical way of making sure your percentage chance of kicking a goal is increased. Because if you run out to if you're trying to kick the ball to the left, you run out to the right and kick the top of the ball from the right hand side. there'd be a far greater chance of it going into the goals than if you tried to just kick it dead between an angled shot from the boundary.
So what do you think about this, Tony?
Yes,
The goal umpires, it just seems to be every time you watch a match now, every second or third goal, they have to consult with the field umpire and they won't make a call.
Oh, Sam might like this one. Sam, when was the last time you watched an AFL game?
Well, I watched snatches of them, Tony. Just
no, I'm not. This is not Inquisition.
Well, I watched the grand final when Geelong, in that shocking grand final when they beat Sydney.
Yeah. So, have you seen any games this year?
No.
Because the score review system is the bane of everybody's existence. But there's a theory saying that Crypto.com is the sponsor of the goal review system, and they are getting an enormous amount of publicity through
Advertisement.
Thank you.
You're joking.
Is
that the thinking?
That's the thinking, yes.
That's a
So
shocker.
Crypto.com are encouraging people to bet. Is that what you're saying? No. What are you saying?
So when the score review system comes up, when there's...
Yeah, it says brought to you by Crypto.com.
Correct.
And what are you saying? That's bad.
Well, could be good for crypto. It's not good for the fans. So every time there's a score review system, they turn around and go, the screen has Crypto.com all over it.
Yep.
And so that's what we're waiting for the decision.
Yes. So what happens if Houdini Plumbing, the score review was bought by Houdini Plumbing
Well, they'd be in the shit.
Heat exchangers? What are you saying about that shouldn't be sponsored?
No, I'm saying, no, it is sponsored. So I'm saying because the amount of time spent on score review systems is over the top. They are getting an enormous amount of publicity.
Oh,
when
so
the contract,
so when the contract comes up to sponsor the score review, the premium will increase because of the amount of action they're getting.
Probably threefold.
So it's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just that they're getting a good bang for their buck.
Potentially, yes.
Right. Well, you could mention it to your friend down at
Houdini Plumbing.
Had plenty more to speak about. I'm going to wind this up now. I had plenty more to speak about the absolute nonsensical crap that went on with calling the clubs by their indigenous names.
Couldn't agree more.
No,
but not all of them.
It's just... It goes on, and if you want to keep dividing our country into race, you keep doing nonsense like this. It is, and the patronising crap of the commentators calling the clubs by these names that no one can pronounce, it goes on, and no one takes any notice of it. They don't realise. They think they're being virtuous and they're being, enlightened. What they're doing is they're just
alienating their viewers.
They are not only alienating the viewers, they just are impressing on people that we are a divided country, and we're not. We should be all together. And they'll end up if they keep calling the clubs different names, they'll end up calling the country a different name. Soon you watch. There'll be a push for that shortly. And you can see where it came from, and it was so. And St Kilda's jumper looked like the old German jumper.
No, it looked like the Adelaide Crows jumper.
That's what it was.
And then Fremantle beat St Kilda, and it said Wally Yallup or words to that effect. Has beaten Fremantle. I'm like,
it is
who
so
on
obvious
earth
they're
is playing?
Falling over themselves to be absolutely virtuous and think they're pandering to an ethic. They are just making numbskulls out of themselves, and no one is falling for it except those people who feel comforted by the fact that they think, oh, look at us, aren't we clever?
I'll tell you who is winning, Sam. Look, I shouldn't say despite, but the AFL is the premier football code in this country, but I'll tell you who is winning the battle at the moment is the NRL.
Well, I don't know if they carry on with all this bullshit.
Well, but why? Because there's physicality in the game, which people love. The AFL's trying to take physicality away from the game.
Yep.
Commentators are allowed to say whatever they like, and people want authenticity, and the AFL fans are sick of the AFL's wokeness.
And Wayne Bennett, the old Broncos, the old Panthers coach I think he's been doing it for about 26 years or 126 years.
Yeah.
He's just signed again for another 2 years.
3, I think, with South Sydney.
Well
with
done,
Russell
Tony. On that note, we'll stop part 1 of this, and well done. And we only mentioned.
Don't.